What up, everybody? This is Chris from ShotByTheRobot.com. I'm a professional photographer based in Colorado, and today we're going to talk about the Leica M240 in 2023. Now, this is something somewhat weird to talk about, especially right now, seeing a lot of Leica hype, which, cool, maybe I'll help out this video. But should you buy this expensive 11-year-old camera that manual focus only and realistically can only be shot at up the ISO 3200 in the year of our Lord 2023? Well, let's get into it. Now, just a little backstory on how I ended up in Leica, because there is so much Leica hype here. I personally wanted this particular setup with the M240 and the Summicron 50 since 2016 was the first time I actually got to hold the Leica. Went to the Leica store in San Francisco and was able to hold the Leica and get to play with this lens as well as the Noctilux and the monochrome. Woo! Maybe one day I'll be a monochrome, but for right now, since I'm delivering colored work, I want to be able to make sure I can use this as well. But in the future, I could see myself owning a monochrome as well. But this camera, I love it, and we're going to talk about pros and cons into it. Alright, so let's go into the pros. This camera is a compact 24 megapixel full frame camera. At this size, I personally only know of two other cameras that can compete. The Nikon DF, which is a little bit taller because of the SLR styling, so the viewfinder's up top, and the Sony A7C, which is actually smaller than this camera, but then you gotta take into account Sony lenses and how big they are if you're gonna stay native. Now, if you're getting this because you want to get a rangefinder lenses and use that, then you can get a smaller package with the Sony A7C. I will mention this is the M240. The M10 and M11 are thinner, and I have heard that Sony isn't the best when it comes to shooting with vintage lenses. Here, something about how thick their sensors are. That's just what I read. I don't know how true that is. I personally never shot with Sony full frame, but I have seen how big their native lenses are. So if you're getting that, you're still going to be smaller in this case. And that said, if size is something that you care about, you can other options. Sony, besides Sony, you can go with Panasonic, an Olympus, Fuji, of course. So if size is your thing, it's not the end all be all for me, but it is nice to know that it looks cool, it's small, fits in a small bag. This is my daily carry, like fanny sling, and I put my full kit, like my Leica kit lives in there, and I take it with me on a daily. Besides that, of course, we're going to talk about the battery life. The battery life on this thing is awesome. You just heard a light fall, don't worry about it. This has the bottom panel on it because this other one, I personally think the bottom panel is cool. I know they took it away on the M11 so they could fit the bigger battery that was also sealed, and I respect that, but I do enjoy the bottom panel, and I think that's pretty awesome. So for those who don't know, this panel right here comes off just like if you were loading an M6 or M3 or whatever, and the battery is right here. And if you can see how chunky this is, this battery is it's like a camcorder battery, bro. Like those old Sony batteries that you get, or old Sony, you still use them. I still use them for my monitor and my lights. But yeah, this is something here. It's about a battery and a half if you compare it to the Fuji 126. And I charge like one maybe a week just from casual shooting. I personally have not had a battery die at all on a full shoot, and I do use this on productions. Like I said, any environmental office stuff, you want to take some slice of life stuff of the company, or if I'm doing a personal project, and I'm shooting with the XH1, I need you to have BTS, and I'm using this. Like and I love shooting with this camera, so I've not had any batteries die in a bad position, and I do have one spare, and that's honestly all I need. Whereas with Fuji, I typically take 2 to 3 spares with me anytime I'm going on a shoot. If I'm going on a wedding, I have 6 batteries, knowing I'm probably going to use 5 out of the 6. Now, on the flip side, thing to keep in mind, again, I'm not saying should you buy this lens or shouldn't, but I want you to be aware of what's going on. Again, this is an old sensor. This is 2012 technology, bro. So with that, the high ISO is pretty much non-existent because Highest, so on highest you can go on this camera 6400, and in the camera menu itself it says push. It's not saying that it's just 6400, because anything up to 3200, it just says 3200, 1600, etc. Anything past that, it says push, which means that it's not a real 6400. It means it's 3200, and internally the camera is pushing the sensor up to 6400. And you're going to get a lot of banding, a lot of noise. Like, you're going to see it just on the back of the screen. It's not going to be where you take it and then you pull it up on your screen and look at it big, you see it. You're going to see it on the back of this old LCD screen. And see how bad it is. So 3200 is literally the limit of what you want to shoot, because you're better off shooting at 3200, and if you need to pull it up, bringing it up in the software that's available now, because it's going to be better than what the camera was going to be doing internally, 11, almost 12 years ago. The same thing with the dynamic range. Dynamic range on this camera is not the greatest. Now that I'm used to it, I haven't had any issues. I know how to use the meter and everything. But for me, when I was shooting with Fuji as my main camera, not just my work stuff, I would shoot one stop under religiously at just off base, and then go from there. So if I shot let's say I shot, let's say my highlights, I shot 2-3 stops under, I could bring that back, no problem, not even worry about it. I'm gonna have to worry about it with this Leica. Shadows can get noise and banding, not just noise. Like, if it's noise, hey, we can do something about that, but there's also banding in there, and it, like, literally the file starts to fall apart if you try to bring up shadows too much, which means you're gonna be either monitoring how you meter, which you do have to know how to meter with this camera because it is center weighted, or you're going to be shooting, some HDR. So shoot for the highlights, shoot for the shadows, shoot for the middle, or you're going to get some filters in there. Me personally, I haven't had a lot of issues with that. Especially if I'm shooting professionally, I typically have my own lights with me, so that's not going to be a problem. If I'm shooting something else, and it's personal, make it black and white, make it work, or leave the shadows as best I can. If it's not for paid work, I don't have to worry about manipulating it. But again, something you need to be aware of. You're not going to be doing like you can with these current cameras and shoot hella underexposed and bring it back up and it not be an issue at all. Nah, you're literally going to destroy the files. Literally, it's going to look ugly. You're going to see different noise and blobs and everything coming out on your photo. The Leica tax, that is a real thing. You do have to keep in mind, anything you get Leica that's officially Leica is going to cost some bread. So the body, even it's going to cost you a little bit. I personally think I got like one of a great deal, but you can spend some money out there even for the M8 and M9 because people love those CCD sensors. You're going to spend some money. I think the M240 is often like the best deal you can get because people don't love the video features on here. They don't have that lust for the CCD sensors like they have for this. This is the first one, the CMOS sensor. So this is going to be like your budget way into Leica budget. But there's still a Leica tax. So if you get anything officially Leica, it's going to cost you. You get an official Leica lens cap, it's going to cost you a grip. Amazon's your friend. If you get the official Leica thumbs grip, that brass and everything, because you want to match it up, it's going to cost you a grip. Again, I want to say Amazon's your friend, but you do you in that situation because some people want to make sure they have that official brass that matches up, and I understand because it looks sick. If there's a hand grip that's out there, again, Leica, it's going to cost you. The EVF that you can buy that works with this camera, you could spend 60, 70, 80 bucks on the Olympus version, or you could spend 300 on the Leica version, which works the exact same way. They're not great. I would not spend a lot of money on those. I personally think you should try to spend about 60, 70 at the most on them, and they're only good for making sure you have focus in low light venues, in my opinion. I keep it in my bag and I've used it like 3 times. And again, each time has been because I'm in a low light venue. I want to make sure I have at least 1, 2, 3 good shots, and then the rest of that is going to be OVF because that's why I got this camera in the first place. Now, one more thing I want to mention when it comes to shooting with this is you may have to change what you can shoot. Depending on what you shoot, this can't be your only camera if you want to be that way. I took this camera to a skate park a few weeks back, and I shot with that plus my Fuji, and I was trying to do like basically documentary work where I, kind of documented the Colorado Springs skateboard scene at this skate jam, and with the Leica I was doing more candid, just portrait or group shots. And then with my Fuji, I was doing the action shots of the skateboarding. And at one point, I put my Fuji away, and I was taking some portraits of some guys. And then I saw somebody doing this cool trick, and I quickly went to continuous burst, and I went click, 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 click. And he attempted it a few times, and then my camera stopped reading. So that light flashed. I was like, oh, what's this? Gave it about 20-30 seconds, and it kept flashing. Eventually I had to pop my battery out, and that happened 2 more times. And so I was like, okay, I cannot shoot sequences at all with this camera. I could a little bit, but it would not be reliable. If you're doing anything action where you have this camera on continuous and you're shooting burst, you're gonna run that risk. You're gonna might like now. Luckily, again, real easy to pop open like in here, and then I had gloves on, so it's getting that back plate off with my gloves on, getting the battery out. That was a bit annoying. So after the 3rd time, I was like, okay, let's stop pushing it. We know what it is. It's because when I'm on single, no issues, but on that burst, and when I kept pushing the burst, it was killing it. And I have the SanDisk Extreme Pro cards, and still having that issue. So the buffer is real small on this. I hear the MP buffer is a little bit better. So if you have money for the MP, you might be better off with that, because I think it has a bigger buffer, so you might not have that issue. But for anyone who's getting the regular M240, you're gonna have to watch that. You can't really be pushing that continuous burst on this old camera. You're gonna lock out. You're gonna have to pull out your battery, and you don't want to have to do that on a professional shoot because it looks bad. For me, it was a personal project that was there, so there's no issues there. But if I had done it on set, I would have felt embarrassed to have to pull out my battery on a shoot to reset my camera. It just didn't feel nice. Now, all that said, should you get this camera? I can't answer that question for you. I mean, logically, the answer is no. The camera's too expensive, it's too old. It's manual focus only. But for some of us, logic is it doesn't matter. You have an emotional connection to this, and it works out for you. I personally love shooting with this camera, and it's the camera that I wish I could shoot with 24/7. Here, I always think of ways I can incorporate it when I do take it on gigs here, because I'll be honest, I got to the point where I was shooting with EVF, and it may be different for a lot of you guys, but I pretty much started seriously shooting with Fuji. Like, I've shot before, but even then, like as a kid with film and everything, but even coming up, point and shoots with the LCD screens were coming up, were the end thing. And when I got serious, after briefly shooting with Nikon, I started shooting with Fuji. And so I've had an EVF in front of me for the last 9, almost 10 years that I've been seriously pursuing photography. And so for me, it's gotten to the point where it started feeling like I was literally changing settings on a video game before I'm about to start. When they tell you make up and down this brightness so the logo's barely visible, I felt like that's what my photography was. I was just adjusting an electronic, and the image I was seeing was from this TV in front of my eye, and I was just making it look pleasing. And I like with the Leica, I'm seeing real life, and any adjustments or changes I make are coming from my mind's eye, if that makes sense. The image in my head is what I'm creating. I'm not adjusting the image that's on this little TV in front of me. And EVFs are awesome, and I use it for professional work, and I've been using it for 10 years. I'll never disparage that. When I had my X100V, I used the EVF pretty much 99% of the time. So, but it's a little bit different because you're still autofocusing and you're just trusting the camera to get it right. In this case, if I mess up, it's my mess up. I didn't get the focus right, that's me. The camera wasn't an issue. The camera didn't back focus when someone's walking down the aisle with the Fuji 56 f1.2. Those who got the OG version know what I'm talking about. That's the camera, that's the computer miscalculating. That wasn't me. I miscalculated, that's on me. I got the shot, that's on me. The camera meter for the scene in the middle, I choose to accept or ignore that. I choose my shutter speed, and it's all on me. I can't even reliably look at the LCD on this camera and judge contrast or saturation or anything. I can say it looks like it's in focus. I can say the highlights look like they're okay, and that's kind of about it until I get on the computer, and then I see what's really going on. So it feels as close to film as I'm gonna get when your boy ain't got it like that to buy the how much Porsche 800 costs and the film labs and everything else. So this is close as I get. I have my camera set up so that it only reviews as long as I have the button press. So if I just click and let go, I don't even see the playback. And that's how I shoot this camera, and it feels really good. I personally feel like it makes me feel like I have a connection. I feel like Avatar, where like I'm Aang and I have a connection to the avatars of the past because we shot the things. I have a connection with Cartier-Bresson, Robert Capa, and Eli Reed, and even up into now where we see the face of Leica changing. We're no longer seeing these old white dudes, which I guess we're seeing the world change as well, but that's what the face of Leica was. It was old white dudes and rich white dudes. There's people like, the documentary and photojournalists like back in the 60s, 70s, up to 80s, maybe 90s, but that's not how it is now. You really see like celebrities, which, I'm not gonna front like I don't love. I heard Lenny Kravitz is a third cousin, so Lenny Kravitz, holla at your boy. I'm on the Hardy side. You got people, like, of course, Jason Momoa and Seal and everything. But I think the face of Leica now is the artists you're seeing doing street photography and merging that with commercial and on-set stuff. So people like Devin Allen, Andre Wagner. I love Andre Wagner's new commercial work for Levi. You should check that out. Devin Allen's documentary work through the Black Lives Matter movement and the protest, and now he's like doing set work, and he's just an artist doing portraits for everything. Like, that seems to be the new face of Leica. That's what I see with Leica, down to YouTubers and photographers, because I don't want to say they're just YouTubers, but like Gadgen, and you see Stock Easy, and of course Binge Heist has been pushing this for a long time. He's as one of the few working Leica, like working, not just commercial, but working portrait wedding photographers and stuff like that. They're using Leica. So you see that the people using Leica has gone from or at least the perception of Leica has gone from rich old dudes who don't even really shoot, plus some celebrities that shoot, but they're rich, so you know what it is, to like people of color and people who are documenting lives and work and their community and things like that. And I want to be a part of that. It feels like Leica cares about photography and photographers and stuff like that. They didn't get pushed into the diversity of thought and photographers they support the way it seemed like Fuji did. While I do appreciate Fuji supporting people like Volandes and things like that, it felt like Fuji got forced into doing that, where Leica has been doing that accordingly for years on the low. And I'm loving it. So when you see your boy in the Leica video in the future, just know I called it back here. And if you are feeling that connection and you want to take full control of that, and you want to know the photo you're creating came from within you and not you adjusting the scene, like this scene's already there and all you did was adjust it. That's how I felt when I was shooting like all Fuji. And for professional work, hey, that's what it is. But I know when I'm shooting my Leica, that image came from within inside me, and I changed the settings to create that. And it feels a little bit different. And it helps that the camera looks fucking dope. So I hope that helps some people. If you did watch this all the way through, do me a favor, hit the comments, and just tell me where you're from, because I want to know where the people who actually care are from. And let's create this community, because I'm not going nowhere. Peace out. Keep shooting.